Welcome, Mike Phelps. Yay!
Thanks, Meredith. How are you guys? All right. Well, so Meredith had asked me to kind of come in today and kind of have me kind of explain, what your kind of competition is doing versus what you guys are doing. And specifically, like on the for sale by owner market piece. I've sold a couple houses in the past for sale by owner, and I avidly buy and sell property, and I get a lot of cold calls, even like on properties that I have that aren't for sale. Like for an example, I have this property down at the Lake of the Ozarks, and one of the agents with Midwest Land Group, they really focus on like development land and selling land down there, listed the property right next to me. He called me up as one of the neighbors and said, hey, I'm listing a property that adjoins or is contiguous to your property, and I'm putting it up for this. Do you have any interest in listing your property? And, of course, I'm like, no, thanks for letting me know, real just like kind of warm introduction with the agent. And then about 3 weeks later, he called me and he's like, hey, I just wanted to let you know we're accepting like the final offers on the property. If you guys would like to buy this property, please go ahead and submit an offer. And so I said, hey, I'm not really interested in buying some more land, down there, but it's, thanks for letting me know, right? And then he called me again, like the third time, right? And he called me and was like, hey, just want to let you know we closed on that transaction, and I went ahead and do you mind if I comp out your property and just kind of give you an analysis of what it's worth and what I think I could sell it for? And I said, hey, sure, no problem. I don't really have any intentions of selling for like a year or so. And next thing you know, like 4 or 5 days later, I get this in the mail, and it's nothing big. It's just some hat I'll never wear, right? A couple koozies with his company's name on it, and then just a book really about them. And inside this book, it had like aerial photos, of the property, why them versus whoever else, right? And I kind of passed this along, and they did a really, really good job of just like pitching this, right? Like called me, letting me know, hey, there's a property for sale. Introduced himself, called me, hey, here's where we're accepting our final offers 3 weeks later. And for land, that's really fast, right? Like land, your average turn time on land might be 90 days, right? To turn a piece of land. But, it's just something really good that they did, and the way like he pitched it, right? Like I almost was like, maybe I should list my property with this guy, right? Or whatever, right? But that's just really kind of what they're doing. Like they he called, introduced himself. For all your listings, I think you can really kind of do the same thing, right? Like I know it's it's not your typical lead, but you get a listing, you call the neighbors, and then just introduce yourself. Hey, I'm listing the property. Hey, I don't know if you have any family members that might be looking to the area. I'm going to be selling your house next door. Maybe my neighbor wanted me to introduce yourself to me. I don't know how you want to kind of pitch that, but then offer them something, right? It's the benefit. It's, hey, here's a market analysis on your property you're thinking about selling, and it's just really speaks to like the way the market is now. A hot market, anybody can sell real estate, right? Like everybody's listing their house, everybody's buying and selling, and then when the market really slows down, it's going back to like the basics, right? And it's just communicating with people directly about what you do, how you do it, and separating yourself from the competition. Another little piece, you guys, I don't know, you might not find this interesting, you may. Some of the biggest agents in town still call FSBOs. Like if you list a house for sale by owner, they're not calling the person up and giving them like the weapons of mass destruction speech, as I call it. Like, hey, somebody's gonna come in your house, you don't know who you're letting come in your house, they're gonna murder you, they're gonna, all these things, right? And probably the top 3 agents in town, when they call you, they're just, hey, congratulations on listing your house. They're real supportive, right? They appear to be that way, right? Hey, good luck with selling your house. Hey, if you'd like me to send over a market analysis on the property, I'll go ahead and do that. Do you mind if I follow up with you in a couple of weeks to see how the process is going? And then they ask the questions, hey, do you accept agents? You pay buyer's agent commission, stuff like that. And they walk through all of that. And I really just think it's a way that, like, when you get a listing, you can get other leads organically. right? And it's not just, hey, here's this, maybe Zillow lead that was provided, right? And just really work your network and work your listings, because if somebody just trusts you to list their house, of course they're going to be okay with you calling their neighbor, right? Because their neighbor might know somebody that might buy their house, right? And it's just really pushing through those conversations with people and asking for the business. And that's what the top agents do in this town. Like, you would never think, somebody that sells $100 million in real estate is literally going to call you about your FSBO listing, right? And it's amazing that they do that, or they have time, or that they've dedicated somebody on their team to do that. And it's just really, I find it really, really impressive. Like, I think that's something that's just really, really special, and that's why they are as successful as they are. A lot of people don't want to get on the phone and make that phone call, but that's what it takes. I've heard people making as many as 150 phone calls a day, right? And I mean, that's just a commitment to growing your business, right? And so, that's what they're doing out there.
Are you on the new do not call list?
On my cell phone, I'm sure I am. I'm not going to. I'm sure you have to, go through the SANS list and do all the official things, but
$16,000
is the fine. Yeah, but if you're a FSBO, right? Like, it's if you're a FSBO and you're publishing your record or property for sale.
The way he put it yesterday in the class was, don't sell yourself over the phone, essentially.
Right.
Sell yourself in person.
Yeah. So, scheduling the appointment. Yeah, you'll have a lot better ideas of how to do that, right? And I can just share experiences that that have happened to me. I've always used Meredith to sell my houses. She does a phenomenal job. The last one you sold the day it got listed for $30,000 over list, right? Like, but.
But I liked what you said earlier, is that, like, if they publish their number, obviously for sale by owner, you're calling. I like the idea of even starting a conversation, introducing yourself as an agent and asking if, are you open to paying a buyer's agent a commission? Because that's really about that transaction. It's not about me getting the listing.
Exactly.
It's about me bringing you a buyer.
Exactly. And then it makes the call warmer.
Yeah, and I think just like maybe at that point, might be overstretching yourself a little bit, but I don't think they take advantage of offering resources. Like, hey, if you need resources, I'm happy to help you, in return. Right? Like, someone to do whatever maintenance on your house, whatever you need. But yeah, here's my number, and then maybe to Meredith's point, stop by at some point if you see it's not moving.
Yeah, and that's what they did. They scheduled a time to call, right?
Right.
And then they followed back up and, hey, did you sell your house? And then they went through. I mean, that's not directly how they came out and said it, but when you have those warm calls, because everybody else is calling you and telling you you can't do it, right? And I found it interesting that those agents were all about it, right? And then it makes you think, oh, well, hey, maybe if something doesn't go, right, then I would list it with this person, right?
Right, this person didn't get on my last nerve trying to tell me I'm going to get murdered.
Exactly, right? Or there's going to be some legal issue with the transaction, and everybody likes to take their angle. But yeah, and so
I'll tell my story real quick.
Yeah.
So actually, my Lenexa listing was FSBO, and they were going to go FSBO, and until I met them essentially, and basically I had to do some negotiation on my part, but thankfully they listened to me as far as like painting the home or doing some things to update it, and they got over list price and what they wanted, and no inspections and no appraisals, but all they wanted to do was they wanted to know who a professional photographer was, or who they liked, and then all these agents were like, that's your listing agent should pay for that, or your listing, and this and this. And I said, well, Josie Anderson is great. I'll message you her information. And so that's what I did. And I said, would you like a free market analysis just to make sure you're pricing it correctly? And oh yeah, that'd be great, And I'm like, these top agents are literally messaging him, and I'm looking at them, all of them. I'm like, oh well, we'll see, And sure enough, I sent it to him, and I like the opportunity to come out, and really just let you know how I feel about the house, other than just my, analysis of what I can see online. And they're like, yeah, please come over, and came over and talked to them, and they were already, halfway moved out, and just walked them through the process, and they wanted net a certain amount, and then if they didn't, net that amount, they wanted me to take less in commissions. I said, sure, we're gonna net way over that amount. I don't have any problem with that one, you know, and so they agreed, and we got it listed the first weekend, so, or sold the first weekend, and they listened to me. But it was just that initial, you know, message like, yep, this is who it is, and then I'll message you the rest of her information or whatever. So
yeah, no, I remember when that happened. Like I was talking to
I
Meredith
like,
about it over the
you're
phone.
awesome.
She's like, literally 2 days later, she's like, you know what? Your conversation about physios, I pulled out. I called a couple of physio. I think I'm gonna get a listing.
Yeah.
And then boom, like already sold it. That's awesome to hear.
And that's the thing. Like I didn't even call them. I just use social media that I hate and get so addicted to.
What'd you sell that property
these
for?
Those memes on social media. Those posts with the cat. I sold it. You wanted to list it for like $375 to $395. We listed it at $400. We sold it for $413.
Wow.
And how many calls did you make to do that?
I didn't make any calls. I just messaged them on Facebook.
Wow.
So you literally messaged somebody on Facebook and then generated what, $12,000 commission?
And then, you know,
did you say goodbye too?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But we have open houses, so it generates income or potentials for our agents, you know, in our area or in our agency for having open houses and the Facebooks and the, you know, social media stuff. So it was great. And then my painter got a paint job. You know what I mean? So it was like, oh cool. I just not only did I do this for us or me, but
right?
yeah, I'm a photographer.
The whole family got involved.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
awesome.
So that's what people need to understand. It's not just me and my family and you're supporting myself, but you're also helping us, you know, support the company too and support the people that we use and their mouths that they feed, and you know, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, good point.
That's awesome.
Very good point.
Great success, man. That's
Thank
cool.
you.
Like I'm glad to hear that.
I do that once a month. Let's just do that once
I
a
know,
month.
right? Send a message to somebody on Facebook and you end up, you know, making.
Yeah,
great
and it wasn't a fluke because I went on to our and the other thing that's cool is our Moxie. I went on to Moxie, so it didn't look like everyone else's MLS. It was geared towards Coldwell Banker, the blue, the pretty, the nice stuff. So it wasn't like if they were going to get it from everyone else and from MLS, they were getting it straight from Meredith, straight from Coldwell Banker, and then just from me. So get in the door, make the calls or make the Facebook messages, and just get in the door. And then just tell them, yeah, you really could get that price. But let's try for more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You really can get, you know, you're right on target. And it's just like what you said, just keep hyping them up because it was. But, you know, some of their walls were brown and some were gray. And I'm like, you know, we just need to be consistent. All brown or all gray. And I'm like, gray's in. They're like, yeah, we just paid our house gray. And I'm like, so let's just get the gray. Let's spend the money, $5,000, $6,000 if you have it. If not, we can use Revitalize, which was awesome. That was, again, my other thing in was we have Revitalize. If you want to use that program, we can certainly use it.
And what were they originally wanting to list at?
$375, $395. So,
Well, your Revitalize program is great. I mean,
Yeah.
you helped one of my friends out that didn't, you know, I think, what did you sell his house in? You sold his house for $300,000-ish in North Overland Park, and then where did he buy? A $600,000 house out south? Yeah.
and we only spent $9,500 on his Revitalize. Prior to that, it was $250 cash offer, and then we sold it for $295 cash. They made $35,500 more than if he would have just sold it as is.
Yep.
So.
And then, yeah, he was thinking he was going to FISBO it, right?
Yeah, he was good as well.
And I was, you know, as the lender, I was really like, hey, you should use, you know, Meredith. Like, she's awesome. Like, you're totally going to get your money, you know, out versus just FISBOing itself, just from widening your, you know, your client base or your buyer base. And,
Right.
you know, she rocked it out of the park. So, another topic really I think I can like maybe help with is really just like doing the little things, right? Like, as a lender, you know, a lot of the time you wouldn't believe how much time we spend chasing the listing agent to get their contact info. Like, you know, our buyer's agents will send over the, you know, the contract and, you know, we'll get the contract and, you know, we as lenders, we're trying to, you know, get the disclosures out because we know when we get a contract and if we don't get the disclosures signed and back within 3 days, there's a 50% chance now we're not going to close that transaction. And you know, I'm sure like the listing, you know, getting a listing with somebody or representing somebody as a buyer's agent, is, you know, those are probably similar numbers. I think that's probably a pretty basic sales thing. And, you know, it's from when you talk to that person and they're ready to do something, get them that information as soon as possible. I mean, I don't know how many times it's like 7 o'clock at night on a Saturday. Meredith calls me, hey, I need to put this offer in. Can you get this guy pre-approved real quick? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it, right? And
So, like, can I finish at the gym coaching this basketball? Yeah,
I know.
Finish coaching and then do it for
yeah, like, once I'm done coaching this basketball game, I'll pull his credit. Here's his letter at 9 o'clock at night, and Meredith has the offer off by 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday night, and they're accepting offers back in this period by 12 o'clock Sunday or 2 o'clock Sunday. Can't remember all the times that we've done that, but that's really the thing. Is like when they're committed, you have to stop what you're doing, jump on that person. They become priority number one, and that's I think that will really help with the success rate. And then some of the other little things is like when you use your email, you might not have a Coldwell Banker email, or you might have a Gmail email or Yahoo email. On your signature line, put your office address, put your office phone number, your cell phone number, because I'll get these contracts, right, and it won't have any of the listing agent stuff filled out. So I'll get the borrower's disclosures back. I'll reach out to the buyer's agent. My awesome team over here a lot of the time, right? And I'm like, hey, when can I order the appraisal, right? And it's 10 days, 7 days, whatever it might be. And I'll ask, well, hey, do you have the listing agent's contact info? Because, I can't, I need to put this in the appraisal order form. So a lot of the times you might tell me, hey, we won't have an answer to this for 10 days. Well, I might order the appraisal at day 7, because on that timeline, it'll say, hey, they won't reach out to the client for 48 to 72 hours. Because a lot of the appraisal management companies we use, they're big national companies, right? And besides Jason at Terraval, like he's awesome. Like I highly recommend, if anybody, any lenders, if you don't work with me, have your lender work with Jason at Terraval. Like he's one of the best. I've been doing business with him for 15 years, and he's gone over and beyond helping Meredith. I've sent him numerous times, or other agents I don't know that are running into appraisal issues, and sometimes as agents, when you go through the appraisal, you look at it kind of differently than the appraiser does, right? And so Jason will always help any agent, tell you if there's value there, if it's not there, based on the appraisal report. But where I was going with this is, I've had 4 days where I can't order an appraisal before because I don't know the number to call the listing agent, right? And that holds up your transaction, because when we Google it online, sometimes they won't have the right cell phone number, they won't have the office number, and that's where we pull that information from the appraisal, is on that sales contract. And I know Elizabeth and Meredith do a great job of making sure that info is on there. I'm really speaking to transactions outside your group, but that's just something to look for when you're reviewing your contract for your buyer, or for your seller too. So, and then just having your chain on there, speeds up the process. Like have the uplife on there, have the address, have your phone number, have your cell number, and have your licensing info. Right? I mean, I know where to go because I've been a lender for 23 years. I'll go look up your license info, on the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri's website, because we're the ones that provide that to the title company. When we send out that initial CD, we're listing all of your contact and license info on there, and so that's a big thing, right? So that will save the lender time, right? And these are things we look at as lenders when we try to find referral partners. Like, hey, how well did they do their contract? How did they answer their phone, right? Do they do they represent their client well? Like, how easy was it to use them as an agent? And so, those are like little things you can do to separate yourself. And I look at that like as sports, as when we're a young kid, right? You do the little things, the fundamentals, and that's what makes you better than everybody else.
So in our desk, CV desk, they literally have a tool under marketing that will build your email signature.
Yeah.
And it has a place for all of those things: your office phone number, your personal cell
I'll get
number,
on that right
your
now.
office address, your office, if you've seen my signature sign off, and it will have a place where you put your license number and what state it's in. And if you're licensed in more than one state, I just separate mine by commas.
Yeah.
but it's literally a tool we have in our CB desk, and you can create it for whatever email platform you're using. So
I thought it's interesting. I use primarily the Lawrence Board of Realtor contracts.
Yeah.
And at the bottom, there's an extensive section for the listing and the buyer's agent to fill out all of that information. So I have it autofill. But I know when I'm thinking about the KCRARs or Heartland's form, I don't think it has that same section.
well, and you'll see listing agents actually have on their info sheet. Now I have somebody who creates my listing info sheets, but they'll have where with your contract they'll have you fill out your closer, you know, your title company, your lender, your information for your client, and you know that's what they're doing.
Oh,
They're
100%. I
doing
did.
that, and they're the bigger agents, of course, who do a lot more transactions. They require you to provide them in one sheet all of the information that everybody needs to know that's on that deal, and
Which is amazing, right?
Right.
Because I know the title company. I don't have to. It says the title company's person's name. Like I know exactly who I'm calling to place my title order, right? Because that was the next part I was.
well,
gonna
home
go into.
warranties, you know, a lot of times I need all that information for the home warranty.
Exactly.
And a lot of times, you know, that's the broker's office phone number that I'm having to Google, so I'm having to go to MLS, so I'm having to find the listing agent, and I'm having to find the listing office, and I'm having to pull up that phone number and hope that they didn't move
Yeah.
since the last time that software was updated, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I totally get it.
Well, yeah, and we'll look on there and it'll be like security title, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I know it's security title. Well, there's 12 offices.
Right.
So, and then out of the 12 offices, who's the person that this agent's partnered up with,
Yeah.
right? And it's just little things like that,
Yes.
having that sheet that just, it really does make your transaction move so much smoother. Like just having that sheet, the lender knows who he's ordering title from, the appraisal from, you know, where the earnest money went. Oh, they are doing the home warranty through Old Republic or whoever, right? And like it's just a great thing to have. And that's just separating yourself between you and your competition, right? Like it makes you look more professional. You know, I would send that to the client, right? Like just so that they have a copy of it. You know, I mean, I know there's the chance that they could, you know, some people, you know, who knows, they might call the seller or whatever, but just having all that information right there, and it, you know, really just organizes you, and I think it'll help make you a better agent. So, you know, you guys do a phenomenal job at Coldwell Banker Ulife. Like, you know, I've loved working with Meredith. I've worked for her, so, you know, it seems like forever now. I mean, what's it been, 6-7 years now?
I'll go for that.
Yeah.
After you bought your house.
Yeah, right, yeah, yep.
Basically.
Yeah, so it's over 6 years now.
Wow.
So it has been that
Time
long.
flies.
Yeah.
I'm still the same age though.
I know. I FISBO'd my house. Originally, I did it. I did this thing. It was sold in 7 days. One of my agents I used to work with a lot in the past, she said, "Hey, just FISBO your house. Like, let's do it. We tried something out. And we tried this program that was called Sold in 7 Days. It came out of Florida, and so I used a company that I paid like $1,500, threw it on MLS, paid the 3% buyer's agent fee, but I structured my showings in a time slot, right? And so they, you know, when people came to view the house that was for sale, I knew I listed a little bit lower, but I had people come on Friday from like 5 to 7. Then it was Saturday from 1 to 3, and then on Saturday, I think, or Sunday was, I think, 2 to 4, and then offers were due by 5 o'clock. So when you go to a listing and there's 30 people there in the listing, and you feel that energy of the agents, you know, talking to the clients, and I think I got like 27 offers on my house, and this wasn't in this market.
Right,
this
right.
is in 2017, right? And into 2000, somewhere right in there, late 16, beginning of 17, somewhere right in there, and you know, it's a totally different market. Well, now, you know, the last 2 years, we know what that looks like, right?
Right.
It was back to that time, right? And now it's slowing that, you know, now that, you know, the process is slowing down a little bit because of the raise in rates. And now, I don't know if you know this, rates have actually decreased again here recently. I mean, you're seeing the 30-year fixed rate that 2-3 weeks ago was, near 7, is now low 6s.
Low sixes?
Yeah, low 6s on a conventional. FHA VAs in the upper 5s. With the collapse of SVB Bank and Signature Bank and First Republic Bank, that really caused uncertainty in the market. The Fed, as you guys probably know, raised the rates a quarter last time. We really expect them to raise it a quarter once more, just because a half-point rate increase is really abnormal from the Federal Reserve, right? And we've just seen a really abnormal time in the bond market over the last couple of years with COVID, and now we have inflation again. We're raising rates, and the Fed isn't going to go from a half-point rate increase to a no rate increase, because that's just an extreme movement. And so if they just did a half-point rate increase, that means they didn't really understand the market, and so they're not going to go to just a 0. So we fully, the Fed survey this last time, it was like 85% they were going to raise it a quarter. They raised it a quarter. Usually those surveys are not off, and so we expect probably a quarter point the next time, and then after that we'll probably see the rate increases stop. Something else we can probably talk about is the Fed raising the Fed funds rate or the prime rate. That doesn't directly affect your conventional 30-year fixed mortgage. That affects like your home equity lines, your auto loans, your credit card minimum payments. It indirectly affects the 30-year fixed mortgage because money's getting slightly more expensive. But nowadays, all 30-year fixed mortgages, or right now all, but I'd say 85% of mortgages are based on the bond market in Chicago, or PIMCO. And it's really what investors are purchasing the bonds at. You can look at the Ginnie Mae bond coupon, the Fannie Mae bond coupon, and the Freddie Mac bond coupon. So the two main conventional mortgages are split between two GSEs, and that's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And those are the standards we underwrite the loans to. Based on the loan type. They have little nuances between the two of them, what they like to purchase and what they don't like to purchase. Some lenders might only do Fannie Mae loans, and then they won't be able to get approved some ones that Freddie Mac do. And then you have Ginnie Mae, which is FHA and VA. And so that Ginnie Mae bond is what the interest rates are priced off of. And then the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac conventional mortgage bond are how you calculate a 30-year fixed interest rate. Because we as lenders, we're an FDIC insured bank. We do service some loans, but a majority of our loans we underwrite to either Fannie, Freddie, or Ginnie standards, and then we collect your first month's payment, and then we package that security off to sell it to a larger financial institution. And that bond price is what we are able to receive in compensation. We get paid what's called SRP, that's service release premium, and that premium is a percentage of the payments that customer will make over the first 5 years, because your average mortgage throughout history has lasted about 5 years. We're expecting mortgages to last longer now because of the low interest rates because of the COVID pandemic. So I don't really, if you guys have any questions, I can do kind of like a Q&A of like answers of what we think about when we do mortgages or when we look at the transaction, or just, any questions you want to ask a lender. I mean, if I don't know the answer, I can look it up and I'll get it right to you, but I have a good feeling I'll probably know, most of the questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions?
I was curious with the lending, so that's good news to hear that the interest rates are down.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really refreshing.
Yeah.
How is there, is there a correlation between those and like investment type loans? Like, are we also seeing those down, or construction and things like that?
Yeah, so right now, what's going on with investment property mortgages is you're starting to see more fees charged on the front of those, because the bond holders, or the people that are buying the bonds, are fully expecting all the loans originated in the last 12 months to be refinanced. And so what happens is when we package that security and we sell it off, and that customer ends up refinancing in the next 6 or 12 months, that bondholder probably didn't make any money. And so they're not wanting to pay a premium right now to the lenders for the mortgages. And so that's why the lenders are now having to charge fees on the front side of the loans. And so, our analysts, in their crystal ball, right, are projecting rates, within the next, 3 to 6 months, to be in the 5s. And then within the next 12 months, we think you'll see interest rates in the upper 4s again.
Really?
Yeah. And so.
Better get the building.
Yeah,
We need
right?
houses now.
Yeah, and so what's going to happen, right? The rates are going to come down. Here go all the values again, right? And they're just going to shoot up continually, just because we have such a supply and demand imbalance. We've added listings here, right? Like seasonally, this is when you guys build inventory on MLS. It happens in October, November, December, January. You build that inventory for that spring sale season, and we have, right? But we're still at maybe a third of the normal inventory we would have in a normal market. Elizabeth, do you know how many houses we have for sale in Johnson County right now, roughly? Is it 5,000?
Yeah, it was. I want to say close to a third of what the typical volume is.
Yeah.
And I want to say that it was a month and 5 days or a month and 7 days. The last class I took that they were reporting, and that included new construction, which was technically where they were reporting that days.
The data. Normally in our market, there's
947 active in Johnson County.
that's it.
That's it, 947.
Yeah.
Isn't there typically 15 to 17?
Yeah, between usually when we look at the market, there's usually about 15,000, right? We just call it the Kansas City metro
Jackson
area.
is just 1,000.
Yeah, so between Johnson and Jackson, there's about 15,000 houses for sale, and there's 2,000.
So that would be in a healthy market.
Yeah, there would be 15,000 houses. That would be a perfectly balanced market. Would be 15,000 houses. And I know you guys are getting this question because I get it pretty much every day. Is everybody's in fear of the declining market, right? They're going to buy this house and then it's just going to, go down 40% in value and they're stuck there. Now there are areas in the country that are declining markets. In California, there's 6 or 7 counties that are declining market. Yeah, Austin, Texas.
Austin's not bananas.
I mean, you're talking houses that have been up 200%, in value in a 6-year period. I mean, Austin, if you go up 200% and you lose 40, you made 160, so, the numbers are scary, but what's going to happen is when those rates go down, there's no inventory. So now here we go. Everybody's going to be fighting over the properties again, and it's a bidding war. And we really need houses for first-time home buyers in our area. If a builder could stamp out single families or single family attached and just a few thousand of them, that would really help our market. Because that's a really underserved part of our market is those first-time home buyers, and especially first-time home buyer new construction. You guys would know better than me. I can't off the top of my head. I don't know what the average new construction house costs now in Jackson County or Johnson County.
In Jackson County, I would say it's around 350, 357, somewhere around
It's gotta be 600, 650 in Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, at least. If it's 500,
most of those bigger settlements started around there.
And I mean, that's just, it's crazy, right? And we're talking about maybe I don't know the exact number,
1,400 square
Yeah.
feet, man, that's the standard now.
Yeah,
1,400 square feet.
Yeah, you're,
3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1402.
Yeah.
How many models have come out in the last 2 years?
Exactly.
1402 square feet, or 1352, or something like that. And And then you have the people selling older homes, like, who even buys that?
I know, right?
And they're 4,000 square foot. Who would even, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's
Well, everybody who's buying a house now as opposed to 20 years ago.
exactly. It's like, okay, it's 725,000 and it's 2,800 square feet. You know,
Yes.
no finished basement. You
Yes.
know, the lots like this. You know, like
Oh yeah, they wanted $500,000 for 2,600 square feet in Lee Summit, and the lot was like flat. Okay, down. I almost bought it, but I'm like, oh my god, all we're gonna be able to use this is for like tubing in the winter. Like, seriously, or not, or just slip and slides. I'm like, okay, Dad, no thank you.
My favorite's like when it slopes to the driveway, right? Like they build the house like this, and the driveway's like, and then kind of, you know, and then the water, you know, is just coming right in the front of the house. Like they're just wedging that house in there. You know, there's a reason, you know, that the average lot in the subdivision is like 165 to 200, and then this lot's 100,000. You know.
I've never actually like offered on new construction,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
At least a month, and it was new construction.
Yeah.
Can you lowball on the new construction? Because I know it's different,
Yeah, I mean, you can do anything, right?
but
Like,
it's
but I don't know.
likely to not get. Like, say you just lowball by like 5,000.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's people in Lee Summit that I went and it was a cash deal, but I think it was their last piece of inventory. They took it from 470 to 400, and then we were like 365, 375, and then they even broke it. They would take like 390 or 385, especially when it's the last of the inventory.
right, they want to start with a new
I just
phase.
never-
They want it gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they want it gone. That's the greatest time to buy new construction.
Yeah. And you're seeing some new construction come down, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's something that we're seeing some of those prices come down. You know, obviously the commodity cost is dropping now, so that should help with new construction cost. You know, that's something that we're seeing in the market. You know, new construction is really hard because the MLS is not always accurate, right? Like we'll get the MLS because, you know, some people started the day they put a shovel in the ground, right? And that wasn't even to start building the house. That was just to, you know, put in the sewers, right? And then some days it started, you know, the day they, you know, started leveling the lot to put the foundation. And then some of them don't even put it on MLS till they're 90 days out. And so, you know, really understanding that data on MLS is kind of hard to figure out. So I know that's probably a challenge you guys have to see how long it's truly been listed, you know, how long has it actually been for sale.
One of the new construction listings that I went into, you know, for Jenny's.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And so the only reason I found that listing agent and found that subdivision and inevitably got into a lot that they had 3 lots left, they had a pending that they put on the MLS. And from that one MLS pending that they bothered to go ahead and put on the MLS, they pretty much sold the rest of the subdivision because they just left it in that. It just so happened that that person's lending fell through a couple of times. It was FHA and not all the paperwork was right. And anyway, so they ended up being able to keep it in pending mode for a long time. However, that buyer's agency commission was 3%. When I bought the lot for my daughter, I just assumed the same terms. But then when we went to close, there was no MLS listing printouts that I had for that property, and they ended up saying that they were only paying out 2.5%.
Of course.
So would it make sense?
But I should have put
if we
it
did
in.
again?
I should have put it in the contract. I should have put it in the contract when I wrote the contract. But again, I was writing the contract based on, because there were spec homes, so they were standard homes, you know, like, I should have gone ahead and put it in the contract, because I use the MLS listings for that,
Right.
just to keep people honest, you know, as soon as I'm putting in an offer, I'm printing out that MLS, you know, and then when I'm going to close, I'm checking to make sure that listing agent, because the listing agent can change the listing.
Oh yeah, that's happened to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
5% to like 2.
So, yes, and we called them on it, but I had the printout on that.
Good.
So, but yeah, if they don't have it in the MLS, you want to think, I would just add that tip to always put in the contract that there's no MLS.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Learn a lesson.
I have an unrelated question for Mike. Are you seeing with conventional loans, are you seeing there being issues coming up on the appraisals that underwriters flagging related to the condition of the home?
You know, conventional really just looks for a hazard. I don't really run into conventional appraisal issues very much. You know, a lot of you guys, I mean, maybe it's, you know, girls and guys do such a great job of just heading those off before the appraisal gets there. But, you know, FHA is the only ones that I really see, you know, any type of appraisal issues. But conventional, unless it's like a true safety hazard, like conventional really doesn't care.
Yeah, I know that's typically been the case.
Yeah.
So I've had some recent experiences where it's come up as an issue.
Okay.
And I also know
Can you give me like an example of what it was?
Yeah. So in one case, let's see, most recently, so the basement had cracks in the wall.
Okay.
Also had cracks in the ground that I like trip hazards in my opinion. But the thing is the owner bought it knowing, right, had the inspection done, went through all the, you know, everything, and a lot of the remedy had been done in the basement already, so it wasn't a concern. But it did get flagged on the appraisal.
Yeah.
Now the underwriting, thankfully, they had already like signed off on the loan and approved it,
Yep.
so we were good to go. And then the appraisal came back, and then the lender in this case had contacted me and said, you know, hey, it was flagged by the appraiser.
Yeah.
Now that's not the only case. I've been hearing about this from other agents in my area, but this was the first one that I had. Now it didn't hold me up. But I guess my thing is that people do intentionally go conventional as opposed to opting for FHA at a lower interest rate because they don't want to deal with that. But we have had some, and I know other agents have had some where it's getting flagged. I'm trying to understand, like, if
So what happens is we'll receive on our appraisal report where the appraiser will basically have a concern, and sometimes, you know, buyers agents might be out there for the appraisal. And they want that concern to be brought up, right? Maybe as a negotiation on the price. But usually what, you know, I see happen, you know, if that's going to come into play as far as a foundation, the appraiser will basically reference in the report he has concerns about the structural integrity of the property, or he'll list something to that effect and, you know, say that basically we should defer to a structural engineer. And then as a lender, you know, we'll look at the crack. I mean, we know normal settling's fine, right? But if that appraiser basically puts in the report that, you know, he's going to defer to a structural engineer, that underwriter's going to order that structural engineer report every time.
So I guess, and this is a part where like the buyer's done the inspection.
Yeah.
Maybe they've already had a structural engineer, or maybe they haven't. Maybe the seller came with like, hey, here's all the repairs we had done. And it looks awful because nobody's doing the cosmetic stuff, or a lot of people are not doing the cosmetic after they do all the brazing, whatever they need to do. But if they, like, is it that the bank would not lend if it's like, would you then have to maybe potentially, because I don't know how you remedy a foundation issue before you close. Like,
that could get crazy.
Huge, and, you know, that could really cause the whole deal to fall apart if the bank's requiring it. Would this maybe have to be converted to like a construction?
So we want to make sure that the property that we're lending money on is structurally sound, right? I mean, it's one thing if it's a little crack, it's normal settling, you know, it's, you know, then it's a whole different thing when there's a foot gap between the wall and it's, you know, falling in, right? You know, a lot of the times we want to, we might have a borrower sign a document stating that they understand, you know, that, you know, this property has a problem with the foundation, or we'll send them, you know, we have the structural engineer report, and we want to know that they received a copy of it and they've read the report. You know, and I haven't had a issue killed by a foundation, and I mean, it's probably been, a long time. I mean, when people are buying that house, you know, Meredith does such a good job of going through the properties and showing the clients all of these things. They're well aware this could be an issue.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like in the case of it, I've had a structural engineer come out and do the report, so like, is it cheaper to just not do the structural engineer like you guys do it, or you guys build it?
We'll use your structural engineer report.
Okay,
right?
but if we didn't have one, and you guys order structural
Yeah.
engineer, are you billing my buyer for that?
Yeah, they're getting billed for it.
I
Yeah,
figured,
yeah, for
that's-
sure.
That's painful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in this case, they didn't even note the floor.
Yep.
They noted a crack in the wall, which there were plenty of cracks
Yeah.
in every wall.
Yep.
And the one that they noted, it was already braced and fixed. One wall was not.
Yep.
In fact, we were like, that's odd that they did all of these, and they did them very
So it already
well.
had bracing, and they
Yes.
made you get a structural engineer.
And they were concerned about this one crack, and it's like there's cracks everywhere, and the ground is coming up. Now, like I said, this ended up going through.
Yeah.
But at the time,
Yeah, it
of
creates
course,
a
it's
problem for
different
you and the
lender,
bank,
But I'm
right?
like, hey, yeah, I'm like, so tell me what happens if underwriting, what would happen next? I couldn't really get a clear. Like, what would the process look like? So it sounds to me like you would order potentially a
Yeah, structural engineer's report.
Okay.
Yeah, we would order structural engineer's report. That happens a lot on FHA
Okay.
loans.
And then maybe require the buyer to sign something that
Yeah.
says they've seen this report,
Yeah.
they're still assuming like risk and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But, you know,
exactly.
okay, you can't at this point. You
I mean,
can't
we could
recommend-
terminate a report. If we're looking at it, we could, if we don't do that, but like we could if we see, hey, this foundation's basically going to collapse, if that's what they write on the
Right.
structural engineer's report, and the borrower is buying a house and they have 5% down and they don't have any reserves, right?
Right,
They have the
right.
ability to fix it. Yeah, we
Okay.
could say we want to know from the borrower how they're going to pay for it,
Right, right.
and how they're going to fix the property. Yeah, we don't have like a hard guideline. We just want we don't want them to close on the loan and then turn around and sue us,
Right,
because you know their foundation's collapsing and we lend money on it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not our job to do their due diligence,
Right.
but at the
But
end of the
guys
day, you
have
can sue
some
for
level.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about appraisers like entering into crawl spaces and going into the attic?
Yeah, so that's an FHA guide, right? They have to take
On
a
a
picture on that. Conventional,
Because that's actually happened as well, and it's a little puzzling to me, like why.
we don't require accurate attic pictures. Maybe he thinks there's an issue with the property, so that's why he's going into the attic or into the crawl space.
Okay.
You know,
It's been like a judgment call. right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Fair enough.
But you know, as far as conventional appraisals, like there shouldn't be a whole lot that you're battling as far as condition of the property, unless it's a true safety hazard. Now, FHA and VA are a
Yes.
different story.
Right,
You know,
right.
everything has to be up to code. You know, the biggest thing I see on FHA transactions is a broken window. You know, some handrail on
Yeah.
something that's over the county code threshold. You know, the GFI breakers by a water source. Trying to think what
How about
else.
screens? Are they pretty strict about screens?
Screens are fine.
Like if they don't have screens?
Yeah, they're okay with that.
Yeah, because
they're-
I've had experience in the past where like all the windows have to have screens on them. Like
Yeah.
FHA.
Unless that's a county or
Okay.
city code, they would defer to that,
Okay,
right?
not necessarily
Yeah,
an FHA.
yeah, it's not an FHA guide. FHA is a really big thing on houses. Is you can't have bars on the windows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big FHA no-no. Wood burning stove without another primary source, you see that every once in a while. If they have an HVAC and a wood burning stove, that's fine. But if the house is primarily heated off of a wood burning stove, that's a no-no for FHA. Like they have to have an actual HVAC unit. I'm trying to think what else we run into. Another big thing, and it's not so much here yet, is leases for solar panels on roofs. Something you that might want to talk to your tenants about. Or tenants, your sellers about is the leases on the roofs, right? The solar panels.
I saw that on one. It was a house that looked too good to be true. And sure enough, if you didn't read all the documentation, there was like a $23,000 or $25,000 balance due on the solar panels that had been recently installed that came with the house, which is why it was priced the way it was.
Yeah.
You were assuming that
Or-
loan, basically.
Or you're paying the solar company instead of the utility bill. The solar companies that, they've, the person didn't pay as much up front for these solar panels on the roof, and now the solar panel company owns this section of the roof, and it's going to stay on that house for the term of the lease, and so you're actually paying that solar company a portion of your utility bill. That's something to look out for too. You see that in obviously the West Coast states, but that's those are the big things that I run into. Like, trust me, we as lenders, we want to close the transaction just as bad as you guys do, right? Like we're going to do everything we can to close that transaction. I know sometimes it might not seem like it, but if we've received notice of some type of issue with the property, or they're kicking that back to us, we're going to say, hey, you've got to go to your professional and get the answer. That's economic life remaining on roofs on FHA is going to come back. You're going to see a lot more FHA loans because FHA loans have just gotten cheaper. The MI got reduced on FHA loans, so they have cheaper MI. Yeah, which is a great thing, right? That's going to help. So you're going to see more and more FHA loans come. The big thing on FHA loans is that FHA mandatory clause. KCRAR took the real estate cert, the FHA mandatory clause and real estate cert out of their contract. So now lenders, after we get the FHA amendment, and that happened probably 6 or 7 years ago, and so your lenders are going to send you out on an FHA transaction the FHA mandatory clause and the real estate cert to get signed. That has to be signed by both agents, the seller and the buyer.
So you send something?
Yeah, so we send it out.
The contract, but after
So a long time ago, that used to be included in the KCRAR contracts, and so basically there's the FHA mandatory clause and real estate cert, and what that is on that mandatory clause and real estate cert supersedes your contract because by accepting an FHA offer, you have to acknowledge that if the house doesn't appraise, the earnest money is refundable. Okay. And so that's why you didn't see during the boom a lot of people accept FHA offers and VA offers. And so that automatically gives that buyer the ability to get out of the contract and get their earnest money back if the house doesn't appraise.
At what point in the transaction would you expect to see that?
You'll see it usually once the appraisal, it's hard to say, but most lenders send it, before the appraiser goes out. You'll definitely see it if an appraisal comes in low. It'll be sent to you immediately. And part of your job as an agent and a listing agent when you're accepting FHA offers is to understand that this is protected under federal law, right? So if you accept an FHA offer, you know that the house, the earnest, you're supposed to know through that real estate certification portion of the mandatory clause, you're supposed to know that if that house doesn't appraise, that buyer is entitled to receive their earnest money back. And that supersedes whatever you put in your real estate contract. Okay. At least in Kansas and Missouri, where it's been challenged in court. Some states that have different laws. There's been maybe some successful defenses to that, but in Kansas and Missouri, it's held up. So.
Right. Okay. I have a couple other questions.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to answer that. Yeah.
I just want to confirm buy downs. The
2-1 buy down.
The seller has to pay the buy down.
The buyer cannot pay for their buy down. It has to come, 100%. That's a great question.
Okay. Yeah.
On a 2-1 buy down, that fee can only be paid, or not fee, that escrow can only be funded by the seller or the agents. That can't be funded by the buyer.
Interesting.
So how do we write that in the contract? We probably take that offline. Like, where would we do it?
Yeah.